All right, so I'm going to say right now, on this date, September 24th, 2023, that I have bitten off far more than I can chew. This often happens, right? I've said this before, but especially now, we're in a little bit of hot water. If our goal is to get 4 short stories completed by the end of the year. The first draft of this particular story I'm working on here is just taking too long. And I don't see it getting done for at least another week. At least it's taking a fair amount of time to really get to know these characters, to really figure out where the heart of the story is and move forward. And so I've been spinning my wheels a lot, and you even see me in the screen right there kind of talking to myself a little bit, right? Like kind of getting a little bit frustrated here. It's been, the past few days, it's been a little frustrating to get anything down on this page that has any kind of resonance, that has any sticking and staying power. Man, yeah, it has been a rough one for certain. My goals that I set are often very lofty, and I set them because I sort of know I can't hit them. I set them basically just knowing that I can sort of stretch myself, maybe get there, but I realistically cannot hit these goals. If I asked any writer, to get 4 short stories done in 4 months, basically, and with 2 of them at least starting from scratch, that would be a challenge. That would be a pretty big thing to overcome, right? And the problem is that I don't have a sense of the proper expectations for my work. I tend to try and rush these stories, right? I tend to try to rush these deadlines a little bit. I'm very eager to get stuff out there because you see me on here, you see me struggling, you see me fighting, every day on here, causing a storm of complaints about how I sort of haven't, got really any sort of success yet in this field. And you see me out here just trying, like, all right, more content, quick, more stories, faster. And we're gonna basically just brute force our way through it. And writing is a very unique thing in that it will humble you very quickly to the fact that proper expectations need to be met. And what that often means is scaling back your time frames. I think it's pretty rare that somebody ever sets a goal for a novel and they give themselves more time than they're actually going to need. In fact, for myself, there outside of just the one project, which was the self-publishing stuff I did this summer, I've never set a goal on here that I felt took too long to hit. I've always set ones that are too short and either come up short or just barely hit it, right? Writing is a slow process. The works that we do are going to last the rest of our lives. And if they're going to have resonance, they need to be stories that speak to a level of depth that cannot be rushed. Even in me telling this, even in me saying this, there's a logical part of me that's saying this. There's still the emotional side of me that still wants to get stuff done, more stuff done, and move on and get to the next thing here, just so we can, again, increase our chances of getting stuff, out there. But it takes time. And these art forms require time to get done. And longer thinking here, I think, especially going into like next year, my goals are going to be much more limited, much more self-contained, ones that are going to require a lot more time to be completed. And with it, I'm looking forward to sort of investing a little bit more time into these projects and not feeling like I'm being rushed all the time. I'm being very humbled. This writing process has finally begun to humble me. If the past year, at least, has been me going a bit more haywire, ever since my sabbatical ended last year, if I've been, very sporadic in getting stuff done at a very quick pace, getting stuff done, very quickly, it's because I am dying to get that win, dying to get that publication, right? Just something, whether it's the novel getting picked up by an agent, or simply a short story getting published. I am really wanting that win, and my flurry of just putting out story after story after story after story after story after story is not necessarily working, and so I've got to now take a step back and reassess what I'm doing. And understand, I think, a bit more that this is going to be a longer process than I think. And with it, a lower quality work that is produced faster will not somehow improve my chances of getting published. Producing 5 good pieces of work as opposed to, like one really strong work in that same amount of time, that one strong work is going to have a much better chance of getting out there, of getting picked up. And it's interesting because just the other day, I made a whole video about kind of the professional versus the perfectionist, right? Where I advocated almost the opposite of this. And here's where writing gets really complicated. Here's where coming up with a core philosophy of writing gets difficult, because it's still true. If you're trying to make writing your core thing, it is going to require that you ship more stories out on tighter deadlines with more frequency for the money, basically, to keep going. But your work is going to have probably not be as strong of a quality as if you took double the time and produced half the stories to improve their work, right? And yet now I'm sort of, you see me here advocating for, at least myself, the other side of it. And it's a balancing act. It's this very strange sort of balancing act. And I'm more or less, when it comes to at least producing and putting out the quality kind of stories, right? When it comes to how to navigate one's career in this field, right? Like how to best approach a certain style, right? The perfectionist or the professional, right? The sending off 5 stories or sending off 1 story every 6 months. It's something I'm sort of learning along with you all. I know a ton about the craft, a ton about story in general, but the career side of it, the sort of writing business side of it, the writing business side of it, I am learning right along with all of you. Just the nature of it. So, who knows? So, my advice in some ways from this tends to shift with a newer, deeper understanding. And I've been humbled. I've been very, very humbled by what I've done and what I'm looking to go forward with. And this process itself basically is really maybe re-examine, okay, how are you doing this? What's your process? And are you pushing yourself a little too hard here and sacrificing the quality of your work? It's a balancing act. It's a seesaw that you're constantly trying to find some sort of balance with. And at this point, I don't know where it is, but I think for myself right now, and this is probably the truest thing I can say, is it comes down to you and what you want out of your work. And for me now, it's become far clearer that I've got to slow down a little bit. I've got to re-examine what a realistic timeline to get these stories done is, and what's a realistic output to put out there. And certainly you'll never know what your limits are until you push them. But I've definitely pushed them this past year. I'm starting to realize, 4 short stories in about 4 months, that's a little bit too much for me. That's a bit too much for someone who doesn't do this, every single day as their sole job. As someone who has, a day job and all that stuff, that's a bit too much. Let's scale it back a bit.